Am I wrong for telling my husband it's too late to save our marriage? My husband and I met 5 years ago. He lost his first wife the previous year and he was struggling with his two kids who were 4 and 2 then. Currently they're 9 and 7. It wasn't the parenting he was struggling with, but he admitted he was lonely and missed having someone there. We dated casually for a few months and then more seriously. I was introduced to his kids after we'd been serious for 7 months and things were going well there. When his first wife's family learned I was around the kids, there were some rumbles. My husband told me it would blow over and it was difficult for them to hear the kids were bonding with another woman. It wasn't until after we got married 2 years ago when I started to feel like it wasn't going to blow over. The kids were acting out with me far more. We didn't have any real issues before. Sure, they were kids and didn't always listen, but it felt pretty evenly dispersed between my husband and myself when it came to not listening. But it was clear after a point that it was now happening to me far more than my husband. Things were only really starting to get more noticeable to me when I learned I was pregnant. My husband was thrilled, but the kids were not. Everyone told me it would take a while for them to get used to another baby joining the family. To give it time. My husband and I talked about my concerns and he told me he'd be on the lookout for anything, but he didn't. He was dismissive the next time I brought the topic up. Then he started dropping the rope and expecting me to do more. The kids saw their mom's family once every 2 weeks. My husband used to drop them off, but then he expected me to do it and I was met with a very icy reception and hostile remarks if I asked the kids to be careful or anything like that. I told my husband and he shrugged it off. The kids started saying the whole "you're not our mom" thing to me. They told me I couldn't tell them what to do. My husband heard them say it and he'd say nothing, and when I did they got more angry. One time while I was pregnant I asked if they'd carry their dirty dishes so I could wash up and they said no and they didn't have to listen to me. I told them I was the adult in charge so they did, and it was a simple request and one I knew they were capable of. They told me their real mom's family said they didn't have to and that I was a stupid bitch who was trying to take them away. I tried to sit down and explain I didn't want to take them away from anyone or upset anyone, but I was another person who loved them. But the kids stormed off in a tantrum. My husband didn't care when I told him about it. When our son was born it didn't get any better. I told him we needed marriage therapy and family counseling and he needed to hear me or our marriage wouldn't survive it. But he didn't make the time for it. He told me things would get better once the kids settled. He was still leaving it all up to me, and anytime I called the grandparents to come and pick them up because I couldn't drop them off it was like I was their enemy. The kids behaved even worse after visiting them. I was told by a friend who had lost a parent young and gained a step-parent afterward that intervening myself would just make them resent me more and would likely end any chance to improve the relationship. She said if my husband wasn't going to step up then I needed to leave. She said there was a good chance my son would grow up in a very unhappy home if nothing changed and that I'd be miserable, more than I am now, if I stayed. I tried to make it work. I tried to have another talk with my stepkids. I tried to insist on marriage counseling again. I got nowhere and it was still getting worse. To add to it, the kids reject their baby brother. There was no magical baby winning them over like others had mentioned, not that I really believed in that, but I wanted to think it could happen. I also wanted to believe things could get better. But without my husband on side? I know it won't. I reached the end of the line after Christmas and I packed up mine and my son's things and went to my parents' house. I filed for divorce the next day. My husband didn't seem to believe I'd follow through with it, but after a couple of weeks he started saying all the right things and promising he'd do better. I told him he was too late with all of that. He said we built a family and the kids couldn't lose another mom. Even his parents, who were never paid much attention to me, reached out and told me I couldn't do this to the kids and we needed to make it work. That it's never too late when kids are involved. AITA?